Hello, this is pre-calculus in section P2 of your pre-calculus book, page 25. This is example 5, learning to do some computations with scientific notation. We're going to perform some multiplying and some dividing of numbers that are in scientific notation. Now, if you'll notice here, the first one is 6.1 times 10 to the 5th times 4 times 10 to the 9th. So on the first one, we're multiplying those two together. Now what you have to do to multiply, as you can see in this solution, is you multiply the numbers together. So the 6.1 gets multiplied by the 4, and that ends up being 24.4. Then the exponents, because the rule from previous years of your learning is when you multiply, you really add the exponents. So when you add 5 plus negative 9 together, you end up with negative 4. So the answer becomes 24.4 times 10 to the negative 4 power. Now, the problem with this is you can't leave the main number. That has to be a number between 1 and 9.99999. So 24.4 is too big. So what do I have to do? Well, I have to convert the 24.4 down to 2.44, which is a number between 1 and 10. Okay? And so because I had to go, this was too big of a number, then that means that I also have to go up, even though now I moved this number over 1 right here, from here to here, but that means I've got to take this number and go up 1. So if I go negative 4 and I add 1 to that, that's where I end up with this right here, which is 2.44 times 10 to the minus 3. And that becomes a little tricky in knowing which way to do, but because this number is bigger, then I know that this number right here has got to be bigger. So I turn it into 2.44, which is a number between 1 and 10. And then that means I've also got to go up in my number here, 1. Okay. Now let's look at B. In looking at B, this one is a division problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the number part, which is the 1.8, and divide that by 3. And that ends up leaving us with the 0.6. And then we take the exponents, and since they're being divided, 10 to the 4th divided by 10 to the 2nd, or minus 2, when you divide, you actually subtract the exponents. So it becomes 4 minus negative 2. And remember, two negatives end up making a positive. So we end up with 0.6 times 10 to the 6th power. However, again, 0.6 is not a number between 1 and 10. So I have to create a number between 1 and 10. So I need to move this one. It's too small right now. I've got to move it to be a bigger number, which becomes 6. But I've got to take one away. Since I made this number bigger, I've got to make this number smaller to even it out. So that's like saying 10 to the negative 1. So it's like taking 1 away from that. So it ends up being 6 times 10 to the 5th power would be my final answer there. Now, let's look at the couple of checkpoints here and do these together. You've got 7.1 times 10 to the 5th times 5 times 10 to the minus 7. When you multiply the 7.1 and the 5 together, that ends up being 35.5. Then you have your times 10, which is your exponential notation, and we're going to add, because we're multiplying, we're going to add the exponents. The 5 and the negative 7 end up being negative 2. Now, again, just like before, 35 is too big. I need to make it smaller. I need to make it 3.55. because that's a number between 1 and 10. So because I had to make that smaller to even it out, I've got to make this number bigger. Well, how do you make negative 2 bigger? Believe it or not, if you take negative 2 and add 1 to it, it becomes negative 1, because we're dealing with negatives here. So my new answer becomes 3.55 times 10 to the minus 1 power. Okay. Now, for part B, same thing. We're going to take these two numbers right here and we're going to divide them. And 1.2 divided by 3 ends up being 0.4. Then we have our scientific notation times 10. And because we're dividing, we're going to subtract these exponents here. And 6 minus negative 3 becomes 6 plus 3, or 9. So this becomes 0.4 times 10 to the 9th power. However, again, we can't leave 0.4 because that's not a number between 1 and 9.99, or 1 and 10. So I need to make that bigger. 0.4 is too small. I need to make it 4. I need to move it over 1 decimal place. So now that I've made that bigger, I've got to make this number smaller to even it out. So since I moved that 1 space, I moved my power down 1 space to make it even. And that ends up being 4 times 10 to the 8th. Again, a little bit tricky, but you just have to learn the tricks of the trade and you'll be fine. Hope this helped.